was given to me not to avoid, but to embrace. And so here I've done it.
So here we are. Now Will Packer, my friend, for those of you who don't know, he has produced such hits as About Last Night, Think Like a Man, Ride Along 2, No Good Deed, one of my personal favorites with my boyfriend in my head, Idris. And I will say, I was very surprised.
Straight Outta Compton.
Straight Outta Compton, I'm sorry. Right? Straight Outta Compton. Now, I was surprised when I heard that you were involved in this project, because it's so very different from
Why? I mean, everything you named, obviously, would lend itself to me being perfect for this, right?
Why get involved in a project like this?
You know what? Look, some things that you do as a producer are easy, right? Or easy decisions to get involved with. I mean, you know, like Ride Along 2, that was easy. Yeah, sure, let's do it. When Mark talked to me, I got a call from Mark, Barrett Johnson over at A&E, about the opportunity to be involved with this project. It scared me to death, to be honest with you. But I'm one of those people that believes you have to do the thing that scares you the most. The thing that scared me about it was not the same pressure that I know Mark must have felt, you know, that legacy pressure, I can only imagine what that's like. But for me, as a black man in America today who has kids, and I empathize with the young generation that fights against a system of oppression, that screams out that their lives matter, and that feels like there are things about themselves and their race and their culture that hold them back. For me, my concern and my fear was, how is this going to be received by that audience? There have been conversations around the fact that there are other slave narratives that are out there. It's not what I consider this, but there has been content that's been created that goes there, right? And what I realize is that there's a whole generation out there that think they know this story, but they haven't seen what you guys just saw. They think they know this story. They think they know who they are. They think they know where they come from. And they're trying to move forward. And they're trying to overcome forces and police brutality and oppression. But I don't know that they have really embraced the fact that their ancestors had the courage that we saw Malachi display on that screen. I don't think that they know that they are direct descendants of warriors in Africa who survived and then were put on the ship and had that passage and survived and then were sold into slavery on American soil and all the atrocities that we saw and survived. And they are the descendants of the survivors. And so for me, it was very important for a young generation that I know their hands won't go up when you say, did you see the original? Because they're like Mark Wolper's son. They have no desire to see it. It doesn't hold up in the same way that they're used to consuming contemporary films and television. But for that generation, I knew that it was important. Not just that we do it, but that we do it right. Because hopefully this will be the roots that will last another 40 years.
Well,
And my son will do that one.
well, he mentioned Malachi. Malachi. You're an English actor. You're a Brit. Got the dialect down. But what was curious to me was, what did you draw upon to develop a character like that? Because it was different than the LeVar Burton character, who, you know, by many people's standard, sort of, you know, got that, was just genius at that. but this is just something so different. How did you develop that?
Well, the first thing was doing my best to not recreate what LeVar did. I didn't want to touch his performance at all. For me, he came to this project fresh. He looked at the script, he looked at the project, and by his own intuition, he gave himself to it, and I wanted to do the same thing. I did research on the culture, the tradition, things like, even simple things like the way that they sat, the way they ate, the way they would greet an elder in the village. I did my usual character work as an actor, just doing the whole character arc and reading through the script and understanding what it was that we're actually trying to tell. But in terms of the actual journey that Kunta Kinte goes on, to be honest, I had no idea how to prepare for that. I still don't. It's epic, to say the least. And to be honest, my main form of preparation for that was prayer. I felt that there were things that Kunta Kinte goes through that I would never be able to access by means of a physical or intellectual mind. And for me also, I thought about, okay, there were so many enslaved people that didn't even make it off the boat, let alone live and have children once he got into the plantation. And so I was thinking about what it was that gave him the strength to survive all of that. And I'm looking at myself, and I'm not extremely big, so it wouldn't be the muscularity. But what I found, it was his spirit and his knowledge of self. And for me, that's the main form of preparation that I took, was to fill my spirit and fill my knowledge of self. And in doing that, actually, as Malachi, I found, for want of a better word, a great pride in where it is that I come from. And for me, that's what I held on to throughout this journey, as I believe he also did, was his sense of pride of where he has come from, and carrying on that knowledge that he was able to pass it down to his children.
What do you think the message is for the young black male who watches this? What is the message, the Kunta Kinte message?
That our history does not begin at slavery. That is the main point of focus I would like a young black man to see when he watches this. And to also be proud of his ancestry, to not think that it's a negative thing to be African. It's a beautiful thing, it's a positive thing. And to also understand that those people who were enslaved were not weak, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. Those were strong people. If they weren't, they wouldn't have been slaves, they would have just been killed. But they were taken to be slaves because of their strength. And they survived, as Will said. They survived, and we are here now because they survived. So, yes.
Preach.
Right? We've got to talk to Rege-Jean Page, Chicken George. And that's night 3, I believe, which I have screened. It is unbelievable. He just jumps, night 4, sorry, just jumps at you off the screen.
3 and 4.
3 and 4. So this was originally played by Ben Vereen. Such an iconic character, sort of a flamboyant character.
Yeah.
Did you watch the 77 version?
Yeah, I've watched it 3 times now.
Another Brit, I hear an accent.
Yeah, I'm based in London, but I mean, I'm kind of nominally British. I grew up in Zimbabwe. I think I'm one of the only cast members that I ran into, I don't know, outside Africa, who's lived in Africa. I specifically just said thank you to Malachi, because as someone who grew up in Africa, often when we see ourselves portrayed on television, particularly by Americans, there's a bit of a wry smile. It's like, oh, that's what you think we're like. But that's one of the best portrayals and one of the most respectful portrayals of African life and African history because I've seen very little respect for African history from anyone, including growing up in Africa. So that just touched me just now, actually.
What was your motivation for Chicken George? How did you connect with the character?
George is huge. He's kind of a big character in every sense of the word. And so there's kind of so much to connect with. You mostly just have to get yourself out of the way, I find as an actor, and just let him come through. There's so much material on the page. Again, literally, he talks through like 90 pages of my night. And so it's mostly just kind of letting someone with that kind of so much energy in the most extreme of circumstances, and trying to figure out where you find that, what you're doing with it, and be respectful of anyone who can be that extraordinary under that much pressure in circumstances so inhospitable, and just kind of, like I said, be respectful of that, get out of the way of it, and let George tell his own story, and kind of accommodate that as much as possible. You know what I mean?
Yes. And you can tell when you see it. I mean, it's unbelievable. And your wife, partner, played by Erica Tilda. What is so fascinating is part of the storyline is that she loses her husband. He's taken away. And the strength and the dignity that you show, because you keep your family together. And I want you to sort of talk about the power and the importance of the female character in Roots, because while Kunta Kinte is sort of the meat of this, of course, women play such a strong role. I mean, you saw it here when the woman was helping them try to take over the ship. So there was a real partnership that you show. What's your take on that?
My body is still shaking. Thank you for your work, Malachi. Thank you so much.
Yes.
This is the first time you've seen it, so they saw it for the first time also.
We're going to hear from them.
There are definitely many and several representations of strong and resilient women throughout the miniseries. As the fourth matriarch of this family, I devoted a lot of attention to the matriarchs that preceded me, Binta, Belle, and Kizzy. I looked at a lot of their relationships with their children, Binta to Kunta, Belle to Kizzy, and then myself. And Belle to Kizzy, and then Kizzy to George, obviously, which I witnessed firsthand. And the obvious purpose and role that we give in this story is that we are literally the physical carriers of the lineage that begins with Kunta and ends with Alex, Alex Haley. And then when I was reading Night One, and it was so beautifully portrayed when Binta gives the necklace to Kunta, I began to think a lot about the ancestral torch. And that necklace obviously makes it to America, and it ends the series with us.
We just had a moment just now watching that. I saw that those beads get passed on, and we have that moment. Cut 3 episodes later.
Exactly.
And just kind of seeing something literally, physically get passed through the generations. It's really cool to see that for the first time.
Yeah, so in terms of that, I also began to embrace us as the carriers, the protectors, and the passers of that ancestral torch, with which that necklace became very symbolic for me So there's that. I have to say this about Ruth, and then I'm going to put a pin in it and come back to it. Last year, Essence Magazine honored Ruth as one of their Black Women in Hollywood honorees, and before she read her acceptance speech, she took the stage and she looked at this room filled with African American women, and she asked us, I'm gonna cry, can you feel the power of our presence? And she asked it again, can you feel the power of our presence? Okay, so put a pin in that. Night 3 was written by my dear friend Charles Murray.